Now to the gold for oil deal. The Bank of Ghana says it is unable to confirm if that first consignment of oil received under the gold for oil deal was indeed paid for in cash and not gold. Well, some reports in the media indicate that the first tranche of the oil that arrived was paid for with cash. The pronouncements are coming at a time when Ghanaians and consumers are mounting pressure on government to effect the corresponding change of a reduced fuel price at the pumps through the gold for oil deal. Joy News was on the streets of Accra earlier today, where some consumers appealed for a reduction in fuel prices in the wake of the arrival of the first consignment of the gold for oil deal. There's more in this report.
We said, let's do something that the textbooks don't teach you. Let's do something that is out of the box. And this is why we said gold for oil. Thankfully, Ghana took its first delivery of oil under the Gold for Oil program.
This was Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia announcing the arrival of the first consignment of the gold for oil deal. Government explains that amongst many other targets, the direct barter trade of Ghana's precious metal with the oil will tackle the depreciation of the cedi whilst reducing the pressure on Ghana's foreign reserves.
But we are working very fast to implement as quickly as possible. If we could start implementing this today, we will start, because we don't have patience. We are eager. We are working hard to reduce the burden on the people of Ghana. And so, granted that we can even start today, we will do that.
But how much is this policy measure costing the state? And what will be the effect of the deal on the individual consumer who is purchasing the finished product at the pump? Governor of the Central Bank, Dr. Ernest Addison, says the gold for oil deal is working very well.
And at the same time, using the government-to-government arrangement to bring prices down at the pump. And so far, it seems to be working well.
But that may not exactly be the case on the ground. Petroleum prices have seen a sharp rise. This is having a toll on Ghanaian consumers who argue that although the policy measure have good intentions, it is not yielding proper benefits.
It's a good idea if only that the price of gold will also fluctuate to come back to square one. That means what is happening with the dollar. If that won't happen, then it's a good idea. But me being a motorist, for instance, I use my motor for delivery services for my company. I think that if the price increases like that, the price of like it just did recently, it affects the price we also charge, the cost we also charge for delivery as well. So if they can use gold to purchase the fuel and make the price stable for us also, to also continue our business, for the consumers also not to incur more costs on whatever they are buying from us. I think it's a very beautiful idea.
The government is saying he wants to do a deal for gold for oil. It should be something that we should be filling at the pumps, and our pockets should be good. But now you brought the first consignment, and yet still we can't fill it at the pumps. That meaning the deal is not well fit. So they should come again. They should come and explain how they are going about the deal, because this is not something that they promised. They say we'll fill it at the pumps, but I'm at the pump right now buying fuel, and it's nothing to show for it.
So why are there market fluctuations in spite of the gold for oil deal? Dr. Stephen Opata is Director of Financial Markets at the Bank of Ghana.
So, but the way it works is that when we buy this gold, boss must sell it to the BDCs and OMCs. They collect the cash, they give the cash back to BoG. BoG will recycle this cash to buy gold. So some people have argued that it's going to be inflationary and so on, and we believe the impact is minimal because it's the same cedis that we are going to be recycling.
Well, a report there of some of the sentiments on the streets of Accra. But answering questions of Ningo Pram MP Sam George at the Public Accounts Committee earlier today, Dr. Maxwell Opoku-Afari explained that the Bank of Ghana is more involved in the purchase of gold instead.
I don't think I have... Order. Honorable Chair, I do not have the full details of that leg of the transaction with me at the moment. What I know is that the gold for oil program has two legs. It has the gold purchase program leg and then the oil leg. The Bank of Ghana is fully involved on the gold purchase side, which then translates into oil. So I may have to go back and check how the oil side was transacted. But what we know is that we have fully paid and bought gold that is enough to support the oil transaction.
This is very reassuring, and I'm excited that Deputy Governor Afishapa, the word on the street is that the first consignment of 40,000 metric tons of oil that came under the gold for oil barter deal was paid for with cash using an intermediary. Such a transaction, the Bank of Ghana will be in the know of it, yes or no? And can you confirm if it was paid for in cash?
What I can confidently share is the metric tons of gold bought by Bank of Ghana. As I said, we have two legs of the transaction, so I will not go into the exchange transaction. But the gold purchased by Bank of Ghana is not new. We introduced the gold purchase program as part of our building our reserves, and we are using a component of that program to support the gold for oil. So the metric tons of gold purchased by Bank of Ghana, I can share the details with the committee later on when I get back to the office. But what I can also confirm is that the gold is being purchased in local currency, cedis. So it's a conversion of our domestic assets into foreign assets. And then it is being purchased at the world market price. We use the Bloomberg and the Reuters market price to purchase the gold. So those I can confirm. And in terms of the ounces that have been purchased as at now, I'll beg of the committee so that I can supply that data later on, because I do not have that with me now.
I'm excited, and thank you.
Well, so that's the position of the Bank of Ghana on this. I want to bring in Dr. Yusuf Suleimana, who's an energy strategist and policy analyst. Thank you, sir, for your time here on The Pulse. So a clear revelation there from the Bank of Ghana indicating that it is just concerned with the purchase of gold. As to what then happens beyond that point, we're not too sure. It raises questions?
Yeah, certainly. Blessed. Good afternoon to you and good afternoon to your charity viewers. Certainly, that is raising a lot of questions. For him to clearly mention that, he's much aware of one component of the deal, but is not much aware of the other component is certainly worrying, because the deal cannot succeed if the two components are not linked up seamlessly. We have the gold side and we have the oil side. And so whatever impact or whatever dynamics that is happening in the gold side, we should be very much interested in the oil side, because that is the direct impact. And from day one, there has been a lot of, lack of clarity in the whole deal. If we had earlier on, if you have cogent documents that we could interrogate from the day one, I think that would have helped a lot. But until now, even the parliamentarians don't even know what's going on. So that's certainly worrying. The caveat is, Blessed, this policy was supposed to be able to stamp authority on this, volatility in the currencies in terms of how much the dollar exchanges with the local currency. But until now, I think we haven't seen that. So that begs a lot of questions. So what is the essence of the policy as we speak? But I think the whole thing is that right now we need clarity. That's number one. If clarity is there, if there are some genuine difficulties that are involved, I think the government can come out and let the populace know that these are the genuine concerns that we have. Earlier on, I gave my very much 100% support in the way that, the whole entirety of the policy is super aerial, if you watch it, because I don't like the way we are so much dependent on the greenback. We need to strategize to have alternative to relieve the pressure. So when I look at it superficially, I always say that, okay, if we can have such a noble policy that can minimize our dependence on the dollar, why not buy, especially if we have gold? Though I always say that the devil lies in the details, of course. But superficially or area, if you look at it, it's supposed to be a marvelous policy. However, if you go into the details, like I said, the devil lies in the details. We have to be able to make sure that whatever we said the policy is going to impact, it should be that. And the acid test for me is it should be able to cascade to, we having competitive prices at the pump. But as of now, we don't have competitive price at the pump.
And in fact, we've just pointed that out, and we've just pointed that out in our report earlier, pointing out how some consumers are asking government for that corresponding price at the pump. So why is that not happening?
Yeah, so it's not happening at the moment because from where I sit, I think the quantity that has come will not make an impact. It will have been very interesting to know how much ounces of gold that we have at the moment. Because if you do simple calculation, we will need not less than 200,000 ounces of gold to be able to meet our consumption monthly. And that is huge. And that would mean that we might have to stop small-scale miners from exporting gold all of a sudden. And I think that was the concept. So why we are not having the impact at the pump is just because the quantity is not enough to impact anything. 40,000 metric tons, if it's only diesel, it can only last, looking at our consumption, about 160,000 metric tons of diesel that we consume. If you do the calculation, that can only last maximum of 7 days. What can 7 days do to the market? I think it will not. And if you even just oppose it to the entire consumption, of petroleum products, which is estimated above 300,000, let's say 350,000, metric tons. That means that consumption, if you put it into that picture, it will be only 4 days. What will 4 days do to the market? So certainly the amount is not enough. And why we haven't had anything coming in is not surprising because of this inconsistency. The link between the gold side and then the oil side, there's certainly some segregation here. And I think the high time will make it seamless, the better. Other than that, no, the policy may be dead on arrival if you're not careful.
Is this looking like really a barter trade arrangement that government has put in place? Because already there are media reports that the first consignment we received was not even purchased with the gold as we're being told the policy was.
Yeah, so that's an interesting thing, and that's why I said the policy lacked clarity at this moment. If we had documents to interrogate, to see what's going on, that would have been very clear. And I've seen documents to this effect. When the policy, first of all, was talked about, everybody knew that it was barter. So we were criticizing the policy based solely on the barter issue. That Ghana, we don't have enough gold. What is coming to us? So those were the challenges, and we all know challenges with respect to barter. But another document came, and that's what Bank of Ghana, the official was alluding to. If you look at that particular document that is cited, and I think it's circulating in the media, it's absolutely not a barter. It is.
Hello, Dr. Yusuf.
It's just simple trading of gold.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's simple coming into the system, I'm saying that if you look at the second document that came up, the second document that came up, it is simply not a barter trade, and that's what the Bank of Ghana personnel was alluding to. So if it is that policy, that document that I saw, then it's a closed loop, which at the end of the day you will have to that impact the pressure on the city will still be there because it's a closed loop at the end of the day. But if you certainly will have a barter, let's say you have gold, the person needs gold, you have enough gold. You need his product, he has a petroleum product, and you can exchange. That could have some competitive advantage, though inherently it could have its own challenges. But the diagram I saw where you sell the gold, you sell it into, you sell the gold to in Ghana cities, you buy it in the, you buy it in Ghana cities, sell it in, buy the gold, sell it in dollars, and use the dollars to buy petroleum product. What's that? It's a close loop. That's simple, still the same thing we are doing. We are still trading the gold. What is novel about that? If that's the policy, then I think it's simply the old thing that we are doing, and we are just recirculating things up and down. So
and the concern by some industry players is that we're entirely wiping out the power of the BDCs. The BoG is no longer giving them the opportunity in terms of their dollar auctions, which normally would happen. And everyone now has to rely on this gold for oil approach. That may collapse the sector, isn't it?
Certainly, that may have huge impact. I wouldn't say collapse, but potentially huge impact. And I mentioned earlier on that I have two issues, a couple of issues with it. I mean, I didn't want us to disrupt the smooth operations of the downstream on one side, and then the gold traders on the other side, because this is a huge influence that we get, especially the gold export, the gold export. And so, and the downstream, I can tell you, controls about 7 to 8% of our GDP, and that's ballooned over the years. And so, I was always of the fact that, I mean, they even have to involve them into the picture, get them into the picture. And I saw a lot of a kind of correspondence between the PSP, that's the petroleum service providers, the regulator, MPA, Bank of, and the whole people in the chain. So I was happy about that. So I said, okay, these guys have been involved, and that's cool. But if you remember, early part of this month, or I think so, if you roll back a little bit, you remember Bank of Ghana said they could only supply 200 million, for the first quarter to auction.
Yes.
That is
220 million, actually.
Yeah, 220 million. And we need 400 million for a month on monthly basis, maximum 350 to 400 million on monthly basis. And you're going to supply only 220 to the BDCs. So short term, if we are having issues with the policy, then they have to revise. They should ensure that they supply enough forex to the BDCs. Other than that, sure, our pumps will escalate. Because if you can't supply enough, forex to the BDCs, and yet the gold to oil deal cannot also cover the deficit, we're going to have escalation in the pumps. There's no two ways about that.
And other questions even about transparency. You just heard that the BoG indicating that they're concerned with just the purchase of the gold. You may not be a lawyer, but you're certainly an active player in the energy sector. Is it possible to have this gold for oil deal arrangement without having it in an international transaction nature, given what government is doing now? Is there a possibility?
Yeah, there's always a possibility, but I think it's not the best way for international, because it's especially if the government machinery is dealing with it. In fact, at the end of the day, earlier on, I thought we were dealing a government-to-government arrangement. Let's say Ghana government is dealing with the UAE government. That would have been perfect. And the security is so ensured, and there will not be any other surprises. But I think we are not dealing directly with the UAE government. Maybe I may need clarity about that. If we're dealing with the UAE government straight, and we don't have any intermediary or a recognized body by the UAE government, who the UAE government has taken charge to deal with Ghana in terms of this deal, I think there will be a lot of security. In that case, government-to-government deal, of course, we will need international, that requires a lot of transparency. But if it is vitiated with a lot of secrecy, a lot of lack of clarity, like what is currently happening, I think it's unfortunate.
Yeah, and I think, but whatever the case, you're ruling out the possibility that this transaction may transpire other than an international arrangement or agreement. It falls within that category, correct?
Yes. I think it should have been international agreement. That would have been what I would prefer, because of security reasons and the possibility for default.
I'm asking that question because of the invitation for Parliament to exercise some supervisory role over the transaction. Would that be appropriate?
Yeah, I think that should be appropriate. And I would think that a deal of such magnitude, I mean, Parliament should have been in the know. I think that will create a lot of transparency, of course, yeah.
Well, let's wrap up on this. The Vice President says this was supposed to be the test case, what we received, the first consignment. If anything, if we are good to go by the figures, the resultant effects at the pumps, but the case is that the prices of fuel appears to be going up marginally. So is it early days yet in terms of assessing that indeed this test case has worked or otherwise? What's your stance on this?
Yeah, so I always say that the acid test will be the fact that it should be able to cool down the pumps. It should be able to have impact on the pumps. And at the moment, it's not doing so. And can we say the early days yet? I mean, we have been seeing early days yet for quite some time. I mean, the whole of January, we haven't received anything. The only thing that we knew was what we received. So I was thinking that by the end of January, we should have been able to receive something. Maybe something is still being worked behind the scene or on the horizon. we have to say getting to the middle of February. By middle of February or getting to the end of February, if you don't see anything substantial coming in, then I think they have to revise everything. They have to give out a lot of forex to the BDPCs to make up for the difference. Other than that, this kind of supply demand for the dollar will hit hard on the pumps. There's no two ways about that. But beyond that, Blessed, I always say that we have to look beyond such policies. I see these such policies as just a short term. If you want to minimize the dependence on the dollar, this is not the kind of arrangement that you have to do to minimize the dependence of the dollar. We have very sustainable ways. What you can do is to minimize the amount that you take out to import it. And you have local refineries. This is the most credible and the most sustainable way that we can do. All this effort, if you are channeling it to making our local refineries work and work efficiently, let's say we wouldn't need over $400 million to go out and import finished products. Even if we could import half of it, and the local refinery can take the other half. That is a major conduit, and such a thing actually will cascade into the entire economy. Remember, you have a lot of job opportunities that are created if local refineries are running. So I think we should look at it in that way. We should look beyond this kind of barter deal and stuff like that, because at the end of the day, we are still exposed to international forces, and whenever there's a shift in any international dynamics, even with gold to oil in place, we're going to be impacted. There's no two ways about that. And these things are traded on international basis. It's not that they are going to buy it on any subsidized price. No. It's going to be bought based on international prices. And so when there's any change or dynamics or any shift in the international dynamics, with even gold to oil in place, definitely to have cascading impact. However, if we had gotten the refinery, that would have helped a lot. Yeah.
Already, the deregulation policy setting in, becoming an albatross, as some government officials are describing it, to the effective implementation of the gold for oil deal. We've heard, for instance, from the Deputy Energy Minister point to the fact that, well, the supplies are in, but the OMCs are not willing to change the prices at the pumps. We're also looking at our policies and our laws. How do we find that fine balance?
That's a very interesting one. I mean, if you look at Ghana, our deregulation sector, we have a little bit of problem. It's not entirely. I don't think we've deregulated the entire market. If you liberalize the entire market and liberalize every component of it, that would have made major impact. Because this is the case that, if it is, that's the conception the conception everybody has. And they say, when prices are going up, it is easy for them to increase. And we've all seen it. That's a fact. I'm a consumer and I've seen it. When prices are coming down, they do so in a slow pace. And they will give you every kind of explanation that the dollar is not stable. And sometimes you cannot fault them for that. You can see the way the CDs and the dollar exchange is misbehaving or fluctuating. So I think our deregulation has a bit of a problem. And the problem is the huge tax component that we have put on our price buildup has paralyzed the effectiveness of deregulation. If you have too much taxes on the price buildup, as we have now, number about 40 to 50, about 40% of the entire price buildup is made up of taxes. All right, and we can't do anything about that. At the end of the day, the deregulation policy becomes very challenging, and it will be paralyzed. And that's how the bane of it. And so it's very difficult. And then the second thing I will mention is that we say we are deregulated. Blessed, we have only 3 major players who are very active, and they carry the largest share. Unfortunately, they charge the most. We have Gold, Shell, and Total. Shell, Total, the market. Gold, the market leader. These 3 guys are those who control the entire market. We do have Petrosol and other coming in, but these 3 guys have the chunk of the market share, and they charge the most. So if the market is deregulated and so competitive enough, maybe the consumers would have looked at, okay, I have other oil marketing companies who can charge less. But where are they found? Just drive from 37, just drive from, the question about to 37, this Liberation Road, this major street. Which other fuel station are you going to see? If not Shell, Gold, and Total. These are the major ones you're going to see. So these are all challenges that we have. And they charge the most. So these are all the challenges of deregulation. If we need to let the deregulation work perfectly, probably we have to deregulate a lot of components within the price build-up. And then we don't play around. We see how we can massage the taxes. Because if you have too much taxes on it, I think it will paralyze the effectiveness. Because the PSP will be crying. And what's up? Let me conclude it this way. The interesting thing that is happening is that, in the price builder, we have three guys who are the key stakeholders. We have consumer on one hand, we have the PSPs, and then we have the government of Ghana who take charge of the taxes. And so whenever there's a shortfall in any place, let's say if international market prices are dropping or Platts is dropping and there's a little bit of space, one of these players will kick in. Either taxes will increase or the PSP's margin will increase. So where lies the consumer? Where lies the deregulation? So you find it difficult to see how deregulation will get prices down. But otherwise, it is the best. We can't throw it away. I think it has done a lot to the market. We only need to, tweak it and let it work and work effectively.
Okay,
and the NPA, I think they're doing so well. They have to also make sure that prices, PSPs don't unnecessarily take and do advantage of the market weaknesses.
Grateful. Dr. Yusuf Suleiman, thank you for your time here on The Pulse. There's also an air of caution at BoG and its environs. We'll tell you all about it when we return from this break. Please stay.